Once again, everyone, I'm Nick Machinski. I'm a meat technician for the Washtenaw County Conservation District. And today I'm going to discuss conservation districts a little bit, as well as what I do as part of the MeEP program. So what is a conservation district? Well, to answer that, we have to go back to the 1930s to discuss the Dust Bowl a bit, because conservation districts are very much a product of that era. So the Dust Bowl was caused by two factors: the severe drought that lasted about a decade, as well as unsustainable tillage practices. The combination of the two created a very arid landscape, and wind would come by and just pick up all this topsoil and dust and create these storms which you see on this slide. Now these storms could push dust and soil from the middle of the country all the way to the eastern seaboard. Now, President Franklin Roosevelt pushed for the Standard State Soil Conservation Districts Act, and that established local conservation districts that would help assist landowners financially. Nowadays, conservation districts tend to provide advice and expertise on certain conservation practices, and districts often reflect the community which they serve. So their services can vary. So, for example, more north in the state of Michigan, you'll have forestry, there's food safety technicians, water quality personnel, but districts also tend to be a gateway to certain cost share programs. It's the 73rd year for the Washtenaw County Conservation District. Districts used to receive support from the state, but that hasn't really happened in the past few years. So fortunately for us, we had a millage passed by our county voters in early August, and that's going to allow us to expand and better serve the community. Currently, we serve residents through our tree sale and native plant expo, which you see on this slide. We also do well water testing events. In this slide, we teamed up with students from Eastern Michigan University to hold a day where the community could come in with their well water sample, and the students would run certain tests on them. And then, of course, we also have the MeEP program, which I am a part of. And so I'll explain a little bit about what that is now. So the Michigan Agricultural Environmental Assurance Program, or MeEP. The program began in 1998 and was made into law by Governor Snyder in 2011. And what it really is an environmental audit to make sure farmers are following the GAMPs, or the Generally Accepted Agricultural Management Practices. Now, the program itself is completely voluntary, so it's not like it's a law that all farmers in the state must go through the MeEP program. Farmers who are really interested as to how they can improve their operation in terms of their impact on the environment, they're the ones that are really interested in this program. And they also like the confidentiality of the program as well. No one will know that you're going through the MeEP process unless you want them to know. I don't tell anyone that you're involved. And as I said, it's voluntary. So if there is a point in which you're like, you know what, I'm going to stop this program for now, I've got to work on other things, or it's not really for me, that's completely fine. It's your prerogative. I'm happy to assist you if you decide to change your mind. So there are several steps for the MeEP program. The first is an educational component, or phase 1 event. Typically that's an in-person field day. Obviously, with everything happening, that did not occur this year. This is our 2019 field event at Green Things Farm, so that counted as an educational component for MeEP. You can also earn credit by watching videos on the meep.org website. However, you are all going to receive credit at the end of today for attending this virtual event. You'll have a form, you'll fill it out, and you'll send it back to me or your local technician, and you'll receive credit and thus complete the first step of the MeEP process. The second step is a technician visit. So someone like myself will come out to your farm, you'll give me a quick tour. I'll get a lay of the land. I'm basically there to be an extra set of eyes, maybe pick up on something that you don't see because you pass it every day. I'll ask some questions about your operation and how it relates to the GAMPs. And finally, if I do find any environmental concerns, I'm not just going to hand you a list and say, here you go, good luck. I'm going to work with you to address those concerns, whether it be get you into a cost share program to fix a fueling situation, or simply, moving a manure pile a little bit back from any water bodies. I'm going to work with you. The third step is a verifier visit and verification. Once we've addressed all the environmental concerns on your farm, we'll bring out the verifier, and really it's like a technician visit, but this time it counts. They're checking my work, they're making sure we didn't overlook anything, that all environmental concerns have been addressed, and if everything checks out, you'll receive a sign and note and recognition from the state, just like Beacon Springs Farm did here. Now, MeEP breaks farms into basically four different systems: cropping, farmstead, habitat, and livestock. And you can receive verification in more than one system. So you could receive just a verification in your cropping system, for example, but still be working towards verification in your farmstead system. Baseline Farm is verified in three systems: cropping, farmstead, and livestock. And to give you a little bit of an idea of the questions I ask, and more specifically what I'm looking for during a visit, let's go to Baseline Farm. I'm here at Baseline Farms to discuss the MeEP program a little bit. Now, MeEP, you can get verified in several systems. Two of them here are farmstead and livestock. And I know this is a grazing school, but I thought since everyone tends to have a farmstead and we're obviously at a livestock facility, I'd go into to these systems in a little bit of detail. One of the things I look for first when I'm at a farm is the well. I look at where it's located in relation to livestock lots, manure piles, pesticides, and other fertilizers. Here we're a good 150 feet away from any sort of possible contamination. One thing I also ask producers to do is to get a well test, including a bacteria and nitrates and nitrites test. The last thing I'll check is the well cap, and to make sure that the screen underneath the cap is secured. Now, fuel also needs to be set back from the wellhead or any other water bodies around the farmstead area. Now, at Baseline Farms, we were concerned that there might be an underground fuel tank here. Turns out, though, after a little bit of digging, this turns out to be just a little bit of decoration. Now, underground tanks are okay for MeEP as long as they have the proper monitoring system associated with them. So if you have underground fuel tanks, don't be concerned. You just need to work with your MeEP tech and they can help you get verified with those tanks. So Baseline Farms stores their fuel in this shed, which has no drains or cracks, allowing for no fuel leakage into the groundwater. Now, a lot of farms have fuel tanks, which are also acceptable, as long as they don't have any leaks, they're stably mounted, and they're at least 50 feet away from any well. They could possibly have other secondary containment. Anything over 1,100 gallons will need a secondary containment. Another thing I'll look for when coming out to your farm is where the hay or supplemental feed is stored. Here at Baseline Farms, we have it out in the open. As long as he changes the location of the hay storage every year, that's all right. And as long as it's not on any sandy soils or near any surface water where nutrients can leach or run off into. A barn is also a great place to store hay, and if the hay is wrapped in plastic, that is also acceptable. In terms of manure management, I'm looking for the pile to be, again, set off from any water bodies or any wells. Here at Baseline Farms, manure used to be stored in this low-lying area, which occasionally flooded. But now that the livestock are mainly on pasture, there's very little manure that is actually stored. But if you do spread manure on your ground, then we want you to take soil samples and even a manure test so you know exactly what you're applying to your fields and you can be sure that they're getting the correct amount of nutrients. Finally, I'm looking at pasture management. What are the soil levels here at the farm? How are the pastures grazed? I'm looking
to see if there are any bare spots in the pasture, because that's where nutrients could build up and eventually leach or run off into water bodies. As you'll soon see, Baseline Farms does an excellent job at managing its pastures.